Good evening, everyone. Being that it's 5:01, we're going to start the meeting. If everyone can just a reminder to silence your cell phones. I also want to make an announcement that this meeting was publicly advertised. In the event that we had a quorum of the governing body, if they were able to attend, some may come in a little late only because they have to leave their other places of employment first. So if we did have a quorum here, we wanted the meeting publicly noticed, which it did meet all their standards according to the Sunshine Law, but we will not be taking any actions this evening, correct, Mr. Delaney?
That's correct, Mayor.
So we do not need to do roll call or anything official of that matter, but I would request that everyone join me in saluting the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Also, start off the meeting by explaining how we're here this evening. We are here by way of almost a decade worth of work, of initiatives that started with how can we make our municipality more walker-friendly on many levels for all residents, from school-age children all the way on up. We're fortunate to have 2 senior high-rise buildings here, so several residents there use mobility devices, so how could they get around our municipality safer? Those initiatives have taken all different ways to be able to start initiatives throughout the borough. Some of them did get delayed due to change administrators because of the 2-year pandemic and so forth, but it's always been at the forefront of the importance of all the governing body members. We had the Complete Streets initiative last year that we were trying to do sample projects to see how we can improve the areas along the school. The other thing that makes Keyport so unique is not only do we have 2 schools and 2 senior high-rises and a waterfront that everyone wants to enjoy, but we have a lot of other activities that everyone enjoys as well. But for less than 1.5 square mile municipality, we have several county roadways and state roadways, which other municipalities do not face with that. So we have the Parkway, we have 35, we have 36, and we have 6 county roadways, which is a lot. So in order for a lot of these projects to come together, it's a lot of behind the scenes of working together with many levels of government to pull these types of things off. So I understand that the first walkthrough of being able to even apply for the transportation alternative program through the New Jersey DOT seemed like it was a long time ago. It's been a lot of moving pieces behind the scenes, primarily by CME engineers. So Trevor Taylor is here this evening, and he's been along for this entire process. So my hat's off to you, Trevor, for getting us to this point. But I would just like to emphasize that I know pedestrian safety is something that's important throughout the entire municipality, but tonight's meeting is primarily and only for topics on the grant program that's focused on Broadway, West Front, and First Street. So I think there was a lot of confusion out there when the announcement first went out that this may be on other projects as well. But so if you're here this evening's conversations will be limited to conversations on that project only, which are for Broadway, West Front Street, and First Street. So I didn't want to get through the whole meeting and people think we're going to be talking about other roadways tonight. That's not the intention of this meeting. So just wanted to clear all of that up in case anyone was here for one of the other projects that are in the works. And with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Delaney, and he'll be sharing this evening's platform with CME engineers.
Thank you, Mayor. I think you've provided a good overview to the project, the program. I will introduce the Borough Engineer Trevor Taylor and his team from CME and Associates that have prepared the preliminary designs. They can walk us through it and are available to answer any questions at the conclusion of the presentation.
Thanks, Mayor and Jay. Hello, everyone. Trevor Taylor from CME Associates. Just for some additional information, in addition to what the mayor indicated, we have a $569,000 grant from the DOT for this project. The DOT is also funding through a design assistance program the design of the project, so that's 100% reimbursed by the DOT. We have a short PowerPoint presentation that we're going to go through, and as you can see, we have the preliminary construction plans up in front for everyone to take a look at after the presentation, and we can answer any questions on that. As Mayor did indicate, these are all county roadways, so there's been a lot of coordination with the county. The county will, of course, have to sign off on the plans, as well as the DOT before we go to construction. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sean Patterson. He's going to be doing the presentation. We also have Mike McClellan, partner of CME Associates, here tonight as well.
Thank you very much. My name is Sean Patterson from CME Associates, and today I'm going to talk about the Pedestrian Safety Improvements Project. So, a little background first on the NJDOT Transportation Alternative Program. It's a federal aid program to provide funding to non-traditional projects used to strengthen cultural, aesthetic, and environmental aspects of surface transportation. The design and construction of on-road and off-road trail facilities for pedestrians, bicyclists, and other non-motorized forms of transportation are what the program helps to cover. And as Trevor said, they help provide funding for design services as well as construction. So the goals for this project are to promote pedestrian travel to key destinations throughout the borough, to provide more accessible routes for pedestrians, to continue streetscape improvements through the downtown area, as well as provide wayfinding signage to increase visibility of pedestrian route to the Matawan and Aberdeen train station. Some of the improvement features going on in this project include crosswalk and walkway improvements, wayfinding signs, which you can see on this bottom image, walkway beautification and landscaping improvements throughout the borough, throughout the project, improved roadway and walkway lighting, especially in the Fireman's Park, improvement to the West Front Street Fireman's Park Memorial, and the addition of curb ramps, crosswalks, pedestrian crossing signage along First Street, Broad Street, and Broadway. Some of the Fireman's Memorial Park improvements are going to include a stamped, colored concrete patio, similar to what you see in front of the building we're in right now, actually. The addition of a stone veneer sitting wall, the addition of round street planters, and an accessible parking lot access. The details of the additions are in the bottom right corner, where you can see the sitting wall along with the access on the top right corner to the parking lot. The locations of the improvements in Keyport are going to be on Broadway, which is County Road 6, West Front Street, County Road 6, First Street, County Road 6, and also Maple Place, which is County Route 516. Currently, the timeline for the construction is preliminarily estimated to be at 6 months from the notice to proceed with the project. And now, moving on to the plans. These are just some images of our plan set showing the locations of the project and describing what each sheet represents in relation to the township limits. These are some of the DOT standard legends. And here's the first set of plans. Hoping
that's good.
that makes it looks a little better.
Yeah.
Okay. So starting off on Broadway, you can see some of the crosswalk improvements, sidewalk improvements, as well as curb ramps. Similar here on the intersection with Chandler Ave. And again at the intersection with First Street. The improvements continue on throughout Broadway on these intersections, building new accessible ramps, crosswalk improvements, in the traffic striping, and further improving the sidewalks. Sidewalks going down through West Front Street, where we're coming into right now, and along with some driveway improvement that goes hand in hand with the sidewalk improvement. And continuing on West Front Street, we'll see coming up here is the improvements at the Fireman's Memorial Park. And the next intersection being the American Legion Drive. Here we'll have stamped colored concrete, similar to the patio style that you can see on the Fireman's Park, on these crosswalks as well. And those sidewalk improvements continue on West Front Street. And this is a detail for the Memorial Park, the Fireman Memorial detail, that gives you a little color and better look than what was on PowerPoint in terms of what's going to be improved upon. And these improvements continue on through First Street, starting at the Broad Street intersection, moving down onto Church Street as well, and Atlantic Avenue, or Atlantic Street, I apologize, along with some new drainage and inlet building to improve drainage in the area and the intersection, and on the curb ramps, and similar improvements again on Green Gorge Avenue. And continuing on down First Street on Prospect Court, Myrtle Avenue, as well as Waverly Street, and Cedar Street, Fulton Street, and Spring Street, as we continue down First Ave. And on Maple Place, at a few of the intersections, as you can see, is going to be the stamped, colored, concrete crossing.
Excuse me, is that like the ones down by the waterfront where nobody stops anyway?
I'm not sure.
There's red.
Yeah, I see, it's a red brick stamped asphalt, so if you see, at Maple Place and Beer Street, there was recently 3 out of the 4 quadrants at that intersection done by New Jersey Natural Gas. This is gonna be the 4th one just to complete that intersection.
And if I may, just ask if you would hold questions till the completion of the presentation, and there'll be an opportunity to ask any specific questions regarding the project in general or specific locations.
And that's the total of the construction sheets that you see up here. Attached throughout is some of the descriptions of the details of the improvements we'll be making, including some tree removal, and sidewalk striping and stop bar striping, along with the details of the veneer sitting wall in the Fireman's Park, the round steel planters that will be there as a beautification, some of the potential light fixtures, and more descriptions of the construction. And here is the locations of the wayfinding signs that you'll see that were discussed in the PowerPoint, along with the signage and the names that will be going on it. And here are some of the NJDOT standard ADA accessible curb ramps that are going to be going into the improvements.
Thank you. If I may ask Trevor, while it should be noted that this project is primarily on construction features to the roadway and sidewalk areas, I think it might be helpful to provide just an overview of the integration of this plan, and while it is not specifically part of the regulatory changes that have already been either approved or are awaiting county approval, and how this project overall integrates with our complete streets concepts.
Sure. So the first thing with the county is, the county recently...
And actually, Trevor, if I may ask you.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Made it easier on everyone's necks.
That's all right. So we've been working with the county on a number of issues related to the county roadways, and as indicated previously, each of these roadways is a county road. So we recently had the county do some speed studies, also look at some four-way stop locations. So the county has agreed to reduce the speed limit to 25 miles an hour on First Street and West Front Street and Broad Street and Broadway. Broadway is between 35 and West Front Street, so there's going to be some changes in the speed limit. Also on First Street, the passing lanes are going to be eliminated. There's going to be no passing along the entire length of First Street. Those are in the work with the county. It's hopefully going to be done before the summer, but keep our fingers crossed with that. What else with the county? That's pretty much everything we've been working on with the county for these roads. As far as complete streets, the borough did do a complete streets plan through another grant with the New Jersey Turnpike Authority last year. And we've looked at some of these intersections through the complete streets analysis, including where to put additional crosswalks across the roadways so that we can improve pedestrian circulation across the roadways. We're looking at doing new crosswalks at Atlantic Street and First Street, adjacent to the yacht club, to get people across the street there. We've also looked at adding a new crosswalk at the intersection of Broad and First Street, so you can see that that's on the plans here. We've also requested that the county look at doing four-way stop analyses at both the Atlantic Street and First Street intersection and the Broad and First Street intersection. They are in the process of doing that study now. So we hope that within the next couple of months, we'll have the study back from the county about whether those can be converted to four-way stops at each of those locations. So this all kind of goes hand in hand with a bunch of different things that we've been working on as far as complete streets, working with the county. We have multiple requests into the county, as we indicated earlier, for many of these different improvements. And then, of course, just to get, safer pedestrian crossings everywhere through town, and also get people directed to the train station. Obviously, most people know where the train station is, but with the wayfinding signs, provide direction to get to the train station from the south side of town. That's a bit.
Trevor, can I ask a couple questions?
Sure.
Are we locked into having to have it as stamped concrete? Because my understanding is, especially on a county roadway, anytime that's been done anywhere else in the municipality, then the agreement usually is that the municipality is then required to maintain it moving forward from that point forward. So, whereas if we do the larger white bars, which I think are more eye-catching, especially in the evening, I believe they have the proper equipment to maintain that on a more regular basis as a county. I know we do not have it in the municipal DPW machinery to be able to update either stamped concrete or the thermoplastic type of crossbars. So is it possible, and can we have that dialogue? We'll have that dialogue and see what the public says this evening, but if I was to give my preference, if that matters, I would like to see the white, large thermoplastic crossbars in the crosswalks versus the stamped concrete.
Sure. Yeah, I think obviously we have those stamped asphalt at the Beer Street and Front Street intersections, so we can definitely eliminate those as a quick fix right now.
And I guess that's another question is, so right now, I know everyone in the municipality is aware that we've also tried to do major alertness, awareness to the area of Main Street and West Front Street, especially once the height of the pandemic started, because of how many people were taking their food to go and trying to cross West Front Street to eat at the picnic tables that were purchased to encourage outdoor dining. And unfortunately, people that kept parking on the yellow curbs, or near the yellow curbing, it was really hard to see the pedestrians in that crosswalk. So we have put different things out, such as barricades, more or less in the beginning to bring attention to it. We definitely took some heat for that, and I'm fine with that. And then we moved and changed it to bollards. Our hope, I think, is to ultimately have flower pots there so that the bollards can't be moved. But we just have to have logistics, and that type of stuff has to be approved by county as well, because while the flower pots would make a point, when it snows and the snow plows from the county are trying to get down West Front Street, they won't be so happy if those flower pots are there. So there's logistics about that type of stuff, and bump outs and so forth. And because, as I said, they're still the ones that salt and plow the roads, we still have to work nicely with them. But to bring that back full circle, we had reached out to ask them to upgrade the paint on the crosswalks that are in that location of Main and West First. And all they'll do are the two white lines. They won't do crossbars in the middle of those. So what is the criteria for them to make it a solid with crossbars all the way across as opposed to just two white lines?
So I don't think the county would object to that at all, so that's something definitely we will include on the any revised plans that we submit to the county. I believe once that's in, I believe that the county would maintain those, but we can definitely check with them.
So we had put a request in for them to upgrade, and I do believe, we're on record, so I'm just gonna say that they refreshed the two white lines.
Okay.
But I would like to see the crossbars go all the way across, especially on any of these crosswalks that we're going to be adding.
Sure.
I think it's a more prominent feature, and it's more visible, and I understand that they may have to be painted on a more regular basis, but they have the equipment to do it, so hopefully they'll adhere to that request.
Okay. Yeah, just another thing that we always look at with the crosswalks is putting the pedestrian beacons in the middle of the crosswalks. I know those do get hit by cars quite often, but they're there for a reason. It's better than pedestrians, of course, getting hit. So we are looking at adding those in the middle of the crosswalks for people crossing the streets.
Okay. So I'm just going to ask if any governing body members have any questions, and then we'll go around the room for public. This evening we have two, at this point, as I said, some will be coming as their workdays end. We have Councilwoman McDermott here and Councilwoman McNamara. Councilwoman McNamara actually served on this committee for several years, was one of the first people to do the walkthrough for this grant application. Do either of you have any questions or comments?
Yes. So my question regarding on First Street, where the other crosswalks are gonna be, are they gonna be near where, okay, I can't visually see because I'm far up here. Are they near where the park is, Veterans and Benjamin Terry and Theater Street Park, for people to walk across safely?
Yeah, we are adding new crosswalks and curb ramps at Myrtle, Prospect, and Cedar Street. So yes,
Okay,
those would
so
be
that
in
circles
proximity
it.
of the two borough parks.
Councilwoman McNamara?
I guess along the line of what you were bringing up about the visibility of the crosswalks, the ones on all of these other streets, Broadway, First, will they be where you really see them? You know, or are we just looking at two white lines?
No, we propose I'll call them the piano keys or the steps. We propose those crosswalks at either locations.
Okay. Oh, my other question is, you had mentioned lighting. Was that just specific to West Front?
Just specific to West Front, adjacent to the Fireman's Park parking lot. There are two lights out there now, I believe, where the gazebo used to be, so we've anticipated adding additional lights in that area.
And I couldn't tell from here, on West Front, by the park there, you know, there is that tricky situation of trying to cross by Beer Street and Mike Stubbs. and it's a real tricky one. But then there's also, not that, you know, it's our responsibility, but the fishery is there and the parking lot's there, and nobody walks up to the crosswalk, right? Was there any kind of crosswalk anywhere else in that area?
So we did not look at adding a crosswalk there when the fishery came in for site plan approval way back when, to build across the street. That was part of their site plan approval. So they obviously have not moved forward with that yet, so it's just not something that we looked at because it was gonna be constructed as part of that project. So whether we wanna look at that or not, you know, I don't think we've heard from them lately as far as moving forward, so we can definitely take a look at that and see. I don't know if that was actually approved, that may have even been approved by the county planning board as part of their site plan approval, if they got that approval.
Okay, thank you.
And then I have one other question before we go round robin. The application for this was submitted and started working on way before we even became a NPP grant recipient. So I know we have done some of these upgrades through that grant project. The grant coordinator is here, Nicole Hen. We've, several upgrades have already been done through that project in Fireman's Lot. It's definitely a far improvement from what it was when this application was submitted. So there may be a commentary, I think, that maybe we scale back on some of those if it means we could put more funding into making these crossbars or something. You know, why I understand it's nice to have that over there. We have added benches and upgraded that entire area already through the MPP grant. So I know this kind of piggybacked each other, but I do think I'd rather see money go into whatever ways we can to assist our residents to get throughout the municipality with less vehicular traffic. Okay, so next I'm going to ask, by show of hands, who served on the committee. Out of respect, I think we give it to them to the floor first. So I know Mr. Palmisano and Mr. Lane both served on that committee. Mr. Palmisano, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes. One is, you mentioned in the directional signage that you're going to point people towards the train station. What about going up towards the bus station that's on Green Grove, at the end of Green Grove?
That, I know exactly what you're talking about. We submitted a safe routes to transit application for that to the DOT. That specific location was not included in this original application, so we have been looking for additional funding to not only add signage there, but also additional sidewalks. One of the difficulties with that is it's also in Hazlet, so we have to partner with Hazlet on that application. So it's something that we've definitely looked at, but is not included in this grant.
Okay. Thanks. And my other thing was that I agree with the mayor about the white lines. I don't see much benefit in putting the red brick kind of look on, you know, I really don't see that as, from the standpoint of pedestrian safety, certainly the white lines. A driver can see those much easier than they can see the red brick.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Palmisano. Mr. Lane?
Michael Lane, 51 First Street, Keyport. Really encourage the use of the piano bars on the street. And it's on county roads. This is a county road intersection on Middle Road with a four-way stop and really well delineated crosswalks. If you go to the train station, which is another county road in Madawan, you'll see the same pattern and the same. The really important issue that I'm really concerned about, and we've talked about it, and I've talked to a lot of First Street residents about it, is traffic calming. If you, Mike will tell you, neither one of us will cross First Street to go up Broad at that intersection, because cars come down that hill and don't begin to slow down and don't have any visibility of who's in the crosswalk. We really need a four-way stop at the intersection of First and Broad. Also, on the weekend, and a number of residents can validate this, is parents with strollers and kids in baby carriages and small kids walking behind them with laundry piled up this high on the way to the big laundromat in Keyport, which is at the corner of First there. And we need to make it sure that, and I looked at your plan, was that those people going down First Street, go down First Street on the north side, and they get to the corner there, and right now they're gonna have to cross First and then go across Broad, if I read your drawing correctly. Is there a reason we're not gonna go straight across from First on the north side to Broad, so that you don't have to cross First Street and get challenged by all the traffic coming down the hill at a high rate of speed?
So, let me find which plan it's on. So this is the intersection of First and Broad. We have a new crosswalk at the north side of the intersection, and then the existing crosswalk goes across First Street. We're not proposing a cross street currently at the south side of the intersection. So this is a laundromat basically right in front of the new curb ramp.
All right, so if I'm, where's the park?
This is a park.
All right.
So this is the north side
All
of
right,
the
so
street.
you did get it on that side?
Yeah.
All right, super.
And then we did, just to reiterate, we did show the bar crosswalks at every intersection. So we won't be
I
doing
think
any
that's-
6-inch lines.
I think that's an absolute necessity. Same thing at First and Atlantic. Bar crosswalks, but we need the four-way stop, because you have children going to the summer sailing classes.
Mr. Lane, the four-way stop is a separate request and a separate project. We already have that request into the county, and we led that initiative by doing 14 intersections in the borough so that they should know that we're serious about that. So that is a request in, that's not part of this project. So, because we want that to get done sooner than later.
We did show at that intersection a bump out into the intersection so that the crossing is a little bit shorter. It will also cause some traffic calming because the road will be narrower there than the remainder of the roadway.
The other thing, it looked to me like you did not put a crosswalk across First Street at Church. And what was the reason for that? Because I know when we walked it and you took the measurements,
I believe at Church Street there's driveways on either side of the intersection that would prohibit us from putting a crosswalk there.
actually, there's, on the southwest corner, there's no driveways. And you cross over to Hopkins Pharmacy, and we just replaced the fire hydrant there.
Mhm.
It would be very clean.
Yeah, it's
John, you
moved.
can verify that.
Oh, I can, it's moved.
It's very clean to do that.
Yeah.
We can take a look at that and just see if it lines up. My recollection is this is a driveway on the east and west side of that intersection. We'll take a look at it.
No, Hopkins Pharmacy has a driveway to the east side of the fire hydrant. But it's very clean to go from the southwest corner of Church across to John's house. Very clean.
Trevor, what's your house number?
55.
35.
Yeah.
And so, I hope that there'll be money for the four-way stop. Because that's more important to me than the gardening.
Yes, it's a different project, Mr. Lane. Any other committee members that are here that served on the staff committee? Now we'll go by show of hands. Mr. Kelsey?
Along with everybody else that's commented, I 100% agree about the piano keys. I love them. They are definitely more noticeable. I know you got them in drawings. I just want to agree with everybody. I mean, that really should be a standard going forward for the borough generally. I mean, when they got put in up by me on Main Street, I mean, it's like night and day. You can just see it. And then as far as the stamped asphalt, we shouldn't never do that again. It looks terrible. I mean, they look great for a couple of years, but then it looks really, really bad. And we just don't keep up with that stuff.
It's throughout the municipality. There's other locations. The most prominent one I could think of is Maple and Beers.
Also, 36 and Broad. They're over there where they're stamped. So they just, the paint wears right off. So we should avoid that at all costs. And then again, with First and Broad Street, you know, that's, that crosswalk there, I mean, that's, at the end of that street, it's wide. I mean, that's a long distance because of the way the corners are. I would really like to see the radius of those corners reduced. Probably don't really need it so much on the north side with the stop sign on First. Plus, you know, you got the boats coming in and out there. But definitely where Mike Lane was talking, where they come down the hill and turn from Broad Street onto First. At the very least, you know, put some kind of mountable curb there if it still needs to be maintained for like trucks or something. That way it'll discourage cars or anybody from going too fast around that corner. I just know from crossing there, it's just such a big distance, especially when you got kids and, you know, as Mike said, all the speeding cars, they just whip around those turns. Yeah, I mean, you know, I just really, you know, it's really important to work in that traffic calming as much as we can, because, you know, we can put all the lines we want on the road. People just, if they're comfortable driving fast, they're going to drive fast. So we gotta do what we can to make people feel like we need to drive slower. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Michelle Brunska, 39 Monroe Street. In case it comes to votes, I want to also add, I like the idea of the piano keys crosswalks also. I think for visibility, safety, and also for upkeep, if, you know, in case the county decides at some later point that they don't help us in the future, with this stamped pavement, I think having the piano keys, knowing that we can do it ourselves. That's all.
Thank you. We can't actually do it ourselves, we do not have that
Well,
equipment, but it's
but
easy, the
it's
county does
easier.
have that equipment,
Easier.
easier than the stamped concrete. Sir?
John Zamian, 89 First. I'm just 2 doors in from Atlantic, and I can tell you that when I come from ShopRite, Stop and Shop, come down Atlantic Street, I never go to First Street anymore. I go to Second and turn left at Second and down Church Street and back right on First, because that corner is terrible. Cars park on both sides, you can't see traffic coming either way until it's too dangerous. You're halfway into the intersection and suddenly there's a car moving at 30 miles an hour. So something's got to be done. I like the piano key business for pedestrians, but I understand that stop street is a different issue, but that's really got to be taken care of somehow.
Actually, can I piggyback off of his comment? The stop sign, the four-way stop sign will definitely help that as well, but I know exactly what you're talking about. And I know that I believe it's 50 feet from a crosswalk, right? But 25 from a stop sign. Is that correct?
Opposite, 50 feet from a stop sign and 25 feet from a crosswalk.
Okay, sorry. At least I had the numbers correct, right? Just a little bit. But because there's no crosswalk there is part of the challenge as well. So, and because the stop sign is on Atlantic and not on First. So, is there any way that would this have to be done through ordinance change for us to widen how far someone's allowed to park on First Street so that you can, because there's also often times there's work vans that are parked there, and that's even harder to see around. And not that I'm trying to say I'm anti-work vans, that's not my point, but there are particular areas on this project that we're working on that could we make it more in depth how far they could park from that intersection?
I can answer that.
Mr. Mr. Parking Committee Chair.
Yes, you can absolutely pass an ordinance to say how far you want. I mean, you could do something generally for the whole borough, for every corner and crosswalk, I do believe. I think there's a couple of restrictions. And then, or if it's specific, you say, you know, Atlantic Street and First Street, it's no parking from the corner for whatever, 100 feet. And then you put up the signs and some yellow curbs.
Yeah,
So,
I
yeah,
agree
could
with
definitely be
Andrew.
done.
You know, if you want to do it, you just have to adopt an ordinance.
Yeah.
If it's going to be more than the 50 feet, it would have to be done by ordinance.
So we can't just put it in this project, was my point.
as long as we adopt an ordinance.
Yeah, you need the ordinance.
I was trying. I guess we'll do the ordinance.
Oh, do you mean to pay for the paint and the,
All of the above.
okay.
I just to make sure that the county's on board with it too, because it's a county roadway, so
Yeah.
it's not our discretionary. Because the areas we're talking about for the parking, the issue is on the county roadway, not on the municipal roadway, right? So it's on First Street that you're not able to see, you can come down Atlantic, it's not Atlantic that's the issue, it's the parking on First. But there isn't someone illegally parked, they're parked within the current state guidelines.
Yeah.
So, but because they're county roads, I didn't know if that would have to be on our end to do an ordinance, or can we make this as part of this project, and then it's kind of adopted unilaterally?
So I think even if we were to make it part of the project, which we can do, we can add this, any signs we want to put there, and striping and or painting the curb, it would still have to be backed by an ordinance, and it would probably have to be the county ordinance, because it's
It's a county road. Okay, so can we just put that in with the
request.
request, the paperwork, please? Does that answer your question?
Trevor, on Broad Street, when you come down the hill, and you pass the driveway for the townhouses,
Mm-hmm.
cars used to park on the, north side of that driveway. And, it was a real hazard.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, we went in and had no parking signs put up, and there's striping in the street, yellow. And I don't know whether that was done by ordinance. I think it was also part of the original proposal for the townhouses.
Mr. Palmisano?
Yeah, I think the problem with the intersection at Atlantic at First is that there's a curb cut, not a curb cut, but the curb doesn't run straight and enter at a right angle to Atlantic Street. There's a cut in there by the condos. And so what happens is that when you're at the stop sign sitting at Atlantic, looking out onto First, if you look to the east, or I'm sorry, west, what you're gonna see, if you look to your left, what you'll see is there are two rows of cars, because of the cut there, it brings those cars, so you're actually looking past two levels of cars in. So if somehow that was made straight, a straight line and then a right angle to Atlantic, then maybe you could, it would improve it. So
I'm not sure if that widening was done there for a loading zone for the condos. I'm not sure why. It's the only spot on all First
Yeah.
Street where the road is.
I don't know
Charlie,
why.
that's being eliminated, that stripe.
Are we eliminated?
Yes, so take a look at the plans.
It was probably
Right at
before the
Atlantic.
old lumber yard. Before the condos was a lumber yard there.
Curve's not being moved, so right there, Trevor, right, that sheet right there, at Atlantic.
Right.
Where's your-
Right over here.
The third one,
Oh,
the third one.
This here,
Okay.
this is
That.
the spot here, they're gonna square that off there, because you can't see.
Striping there so that people won't be able to park up there within that area. So,
And the
That'll
county
eliminate the parking.
has requested we modify that radius on the east side of the intersection of Atlantic and First, so that cars and vehicles can make that right turn easier.
You may wanna put some valves if you're striping.
Yes, understand, it's a question.
Trevor, a question. I've heard a lot about the traffic on Broad heading north and coming down the hill. My recollection is that as part of our preliminary discussion with county traffic, they indicated that creating that as a multi-stop intersection, I don't want to use the word they wouldn't allow it, or they recognize that typically a stop sign that close to a traffic signal would not be permitted. And again, I'm maybe permitted isn't the right word, maybe preferred is, but is my recollection correct?
Yeah, I think, again, we did request that, but in the initial comments with them, because it is, like Mr. Delaney said, only a couple hundred feet from the traffic signal to the stop sign. If you get a lot of vehicles that are stopped at the stop sign, they're gonna be queuing up through the traffic signal, which is something that it's not preferred. So, now you're gonna have traffic backing up West Front Street instead of flowing through down Broad Street to make the right on First Street. So, again, the county's looking at it. I'm sure that's something that they're looking at as part of their analysis.
Well, you have a stop sign on First Street anyway, so the cars, there's never a backup there. In fact, most people don't even stop for the stop sign.
Right, but if we create a three-way stop there, now you're stopping people at Street from Broad. Now, if you get heavy traffic going through the traffic signal, you're gonna be backing vehicles up through the traffic
I
signal.
have never seen heavy traffic in that area.
So again, that's not part of this project right now. So the, John, you have your hand up?
Yes,
Um,
John Carroll, 55 First Street. I live on the north side of First. I guess that's the north side. I get myself in north. And I was a boater. Anyway, so I do just what this gentleman does. I always take that little dog's leg and come down Church there to, I have to get across the street actually into that driveway. So it's a little hairy. But you know what I find makes it hairier? It's the trucks that park there. Now, they're not big trucks, but, and they're people who are working in the area perhaps.
can I just interrupt you for 1 second?
Yeah,
Because
sure.
now we're talking about Church and Atlantic, just so everyone knows. We were talking about Atlantic and First, now we're talking about First and Church, correct?
First and Church, yes, but between Atlantic and Church on
Correct.
First.
Right, that's what we were just talking about
Yes,
as well, right?
yes, right. So I don't know if there's any ordinance regarding small trucks that park there, but the thing that bothers me is some of them are there overnight. And I would think an ordinance that says, yeah, you can, if you're working, you can park here until, what, 6, 7 o'clock at night, but then, just like the snow, you gotta disappear. Because it would make it safer for us who have to turn onto that street. Are sidewalks included in this project anywhere?
There were some accessible ramp features added in this project, and I think very minimal sidewalk upgrades. Just because of
Well,
that.
I just wanna bring up the sidewalk on First Street, between where I live and the yacht club. Now, that's all slate, pavement there. I love the slate. I wouldn't wanna see it disappear. I miss it now that it's no longer on West Front. But it's gotta be fixed. Somebody's gotta break their ever loving neck there.
We can have property maintenance go out and issue a violation there, that's fine.
Oh, if you think that's enough, okay with me, but
We'll talk to
I can
them.
still walk on it, but,
Yeah, we can have property maintenance address that.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hasan?
Hi, I'm Nicole Hen, 8 Kearney Street, and also the MPP coordinator. We have been, the MPP team had been exploring some additional pedestrian safety measures for this year's plan. And one of the items we came across was something called Safe Walk, which is the illumination light that sends a pretty heavily concentrated light towards the ground, illuminating the walkway across the crosswalks. Have any of that been discussed for this part of the plan, or?
It hasn't, but are those the ones that shine up from the road or down?
No, they
onto the-
shine downward,
Down.
so it's triggered by when a pedestrian would enter the crosswalk area. And they can be timed to go by the schedule of sunset, dusk, when it's, difficult for some drivers to see. It just kind of adds a little bit more of a visible element as you're trying to cross.
I've not specifically had any experience in some of those, but it's
Do you have to
definitely
hit
something.
something when you're
No,
entering the
it-
crosswalk? It's got a sensor in it?
There are actually two options that I've seen just in the very preliminary review of what they have available. One is that you would touch it and tap, and then it illuminates. Again, heavy concentrated light just straight across the crosswalk. And it's angled that way so it doesn't interfere with people who are the residents in the area, because that's the last thing anybody wants is a bright shining light in their window. And then there is one that is automatic, so as you approach, it's sensor, and then you would go.
And it
So
just stays on for like
it's
20
like 30
seconds?
seconds. I
or
think it's
30
timed based on
Okay.
the distance of the crosswalk itself.
Nicole, what was the name?
Called Safe Walk.
Safe Walk.
I could send you what I have.
And it doesn't require anyone to turn them off and turn them on?
No, it's just it would be like the same kind of timer structure.
So
that
it's
you-
solar
Are they
powered?
There is solar, yes.
powered?
There is solar, yes.
Trevor, building on that input, at the intersection of West Front and Broad, we have a set of crosswalks, and you can press the button, you get a visual alerting and an audio alerting that you have a right of way.
but we don't do like in Massachusetts, in Concord, and in Florida, and in Orlando, that when you press that button and you get the visual, you got 20 seconds to cross the street, you don't get a four-way stop in the traffic light. So there are no cars, and you do take your life in your hands. I've experienced it. Because people still come up and make a left-hand turn right into the crosswalk area. And you have the light structure, you have the poles, you have the buttons. What you don't do is synchronize it to be red in both directions for the amount of time that you're allowed to be in the crosswalk.
We can actually reach out to them, Trevor, and have them adjust the timing of that intersection, please.
Yeah, we'll request that to the county.
Yes.
It's not,
But that's not part of this project, if we could do that
Separately.
separately, and
Sure.
Sue, please.
it's not a timing issue, it's a matter of, the timing is fine, it's just that when you press the button, you get stop in both directions.
Well, that was the request we had put into county, because we had put in the request that you asked us to, which was the pedestrian scramble, and that was what their compromise was to do the stop in the, both at the intersection. So if we need to make them longer, then that will solve part of that problem.
Hi everybody, Warren Bricks, I'm the association president of Condo 135 First Street. First, I want to commend, I really just found out about this, I want to commend, I think the speed limit reduction would be a major improvement. And I really thank everybody. Just a couple of issues from what I'm hearing about today though is, I'm not really familiar with all the setbacks on the curbs at Atlantic Street and Green Grove, but, you know, that is an issue. So making the left turn onto, or the right turn onto First Street from Atlantic, cars get close, like you're talking about like on Beer Street, putting the pots and stuff in. And I don't know how much of that's compliance issues, but I know for sure when we start getting into the warmer summer months, there are definite compliance issues where people are parking right to the edge, maybe past the edge of that corner. So maybe something like police could, you know, do more on it in the summertime.
You're talking about Atlantic Street, right?
Well, Atlantic, and the other one I haven't heard is Green Grove, because Green Grove is a real issue. I totally avoid that one like I avoid, like I do what you do too. But Green Grove is, you know, that's a tough turn there, and there's really no traffic control there. And it's really very narrow and very difficult to see cars coming either east or west on that street. So that might, you know, whatever you could do there to help with Green Grove would be appreciated.
The area of Green Grove between First and Second as well, on Green Grove, not on First. That's actually one of the reasons I have established and requested a parking committee to be created, because there's a lot of signs throughout the municipality that were just randomly put up that are not put up by ordinance, and then there's areas that there should be signs and they magically disappeared. Actually, almost the entire parking committee is here now, and they've been working on that for a solid year, looking at where there's signs missing according to ordinances, and where we need to maybe add some, not just according to ordinances, but where do we need to change ordinances. And it boggles my mind all the time that there's vehicles allowed to park on Green Grove on between First and Second on either side, because there's at least in the evenings 5 vehicles parked there, and then you have a driveway for the back of the restaurant. That's a legitimate driveway that the vehicles are parked there for the restaurant or for the apartments that are adjacent to the, I think it's like a 4-family home maybe. I know it's at least 2. It's a multi-family home, and they can't even back their cars out. So I know that that's another issue over there too. So you have people making a wider turn off of First onto Green Grove because they know those parked cars are there. So I'm in agreement with you, but I think that's a parking committee task, but I think it should be highlighted in here as well if you can. Yes, ma'am?
I have a question. On First Street, if they don't put up a stop sign there, and those people go around that corner,
First and where, ma'am?
First and Broad,
Okay.
they start around that corner, and they can go from 0 to 50 by the time they get up to Atlantic. Down right past the park, where
not put speed bumps in there, or?
The
do
county will
something
not
like that?
approve speed bumps.
How are we gonna control these people that are going?
Well, we're hoping
This is
that-
all day long.
We're hoping that the reduction of this, the speed limit that we got approved from the governing body with the county is going to help some of that, and then the police will be able to enforce it more, because it is a big difference to drop
But is it a
that.
county road, can the police here in Keyport write tickets?
Yeah, so this is where it's very interesting. We don't maintain the roadways, we maintain the water and sewer lines under the roadways, because that is a municipal, utility. But as far as enforcement, that is all Keyport police.
Well, they can make a lot of money just sitting on that street.
A lot of places.
Yeah, and another question, if they're working the lights, are they gonna fix the lights on First Street by the ramp? There's a lot of,
By the townhouses,
yeah, townhouses and across the street.
across from the beach parking, across from the boat ramp,
Yeah,
the townhouses there. Yeah, there was, a lot of, that, again, not part of this project, so the short answer is, that is being worked on. There was a disagreement, I believe, or misunderstanding, I guess is a better word, on whose lights those actually were and who was processing the insurance claims from the car accidents that took those out. So I believe Mr. Delaney has gotten to the bottom of all that, and that is being worked on, correct?
Yes.
But the fact that the traffic took the light poles down is a reflection of how bad the problem is.
Anyone else by show of hands? Mr. Vecchio?
Nick Vecchio, 36 Broadway. I guess we'll start on Broadway and West Front. Is that intersection going to be repaved, or are the crosswalks just going over existing pavement?
I'm not sure if we're gonna,
Because that has a lot of potholes. I know they'll throw a patch in there and stuff, but that's up in a week or two.
It's just in the intersection between the crosswalks. The grants don't allow, inline road paving.
so it looks like we're gonna be paving
Just
the intersection where the crosswalks is, but the entire intersection, so the entire box.
So the whole box will get paved.
That's right.
Okay. And then moving down, is that concrete sidewalks from, let's say, Broadway all the way down to American Legion Drive?
Here?
Yeah.
Yes. And the only gap that we have is where the PRC is building their townhouses now.
Okay.
They're responsible for that section along their property frontage.
Is that going to include curbs?
Does include curbs where necessary. Actually, one thing with the curbs is that SHPO, that's the State Historic Preservation Office, looks at the slate curb, and they're actually requiring that the slate curb be, remain where necessary, or wherever we can, and then new slate curb go in the other areas where there's existing slate
Okay.
curb. So I think a lot of that area has slate curb, so we'll probably end up
Yeah,
having to
most of
put
it is
slate curbs
slate.
back in there.
Because the reason why I ask is people park on top of the sidewalk, mostly on the south side.
On
West Front
on
Street?
West Front.
Across from the deli, there's a few houses there. They'll literally just pull their cars right up on the sidewalk, run to the store. So if we're gonna put sidewalks there, we might need to think about making that no parking or something.
We did add, curb paint there, to paint it yellow, and additional no parking signs to restrict the parking at that intersection.
But I'm saying, they'll just pull up on the sidewalk, literally.
And this is which one?
It's mostly in front of the deli. The
So-
curb across the street's pretty high, so nobody mounts that curb.
Right.
But
So that would be on the south side of the
the
street.
south side of the street.
So, and then you, for Broadway, now that we really haven't focused much at all on this conversation tonight on Broadway, you were proposing on Chandler to add a crosswalk, is that correct?
Provost, Chandler, and West First Street. So it'll be
So-
3 crossings
So
across Broadway.
that's another thing we'll just have to have communication with our department.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Because there's not a stop sign there now, and people do park right up to those corners but now there'll be a crosswalk there, so the width of the crosswalk, in addition to the distance with how far you could park from a crosswalk, we're just gonna have to do heavy communication about that, because I would say that in total, we're probably eliminating 10 parking spaces throughout the length of Broadway. So residents should be made aware of that as soon as we're able to put this application in, so that they can start getting used to parking a little further from their front door.
Trevor, why were the sidewalks between Broadway and Ring Road or American Legion Drive selected for replacement? I've walked that, and except for one 5-foot, 4-foot section of sidewalk on the north side, where a tree has lifted it almost next to the Peterson's home, that's some of the finest sidewalks in Keyport. I mean, you wanna see sidewalks, go down First Street, oh my God. And on
Sorry,
the-
Mr. Vecchio, were you done with your questions? I know you had a few questions.
I had a couple more,
Okay, go
but
ahead.
you can finish if you want.
And on the south side, you have the crosswalks were gonna be replaced by PRC, and the crosswalks in front of Apollo, again, are some of the finest sidewalks in Keyport.
So I think the intent of that with the initial application is we have the streetscape up to a point along West Front Street, and it was going to be added by PRC along their frontage, so the goal was to extend it to the traffic signal, so basically the downtown area, let's say, was gonna have a similar streetscape throughout the downtown area.
But we got crosswalks on First Street that,
Go ahead, Mr. Vecchio.
Were there any other improvements alongside that streetscape? Like, were there lights being added, or?
I think we have a couple street trees, and the lights were only gonna be down by, Fireman's Park.
Okay.
I think the input that we're seeing is maybe we wanna spend more on sidewalks and less on the lights, so we can take a look at that, in that area.
And then, the reasoning behind the fireman's lot upgrades, what did that have to do with pedestrian safety?
So the fireman's lot is just basically the transition from, talking about the monument?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a transition from the sidewalk to the monument, because right now it's, several inch, I don't even know how high it is, but it's almost like a step up to that monument, so, and there's a handicap parking space right next to the monument, so we wanted to clean that up and just make it a more pedestrian-friendly transition from the parking lot to the monument to the sidewalk. It's not like we're not redoing the monument, it's just basically walking around the monument.
So will that replace the sidewalks in front of the Ekai Gym property as well?
The E-Cottage Inn sidewalks were part of their approval for Port 149, I believe.
Yeah, we do have the, from basically Beer Street all the way to the traffic signal, we are including all the sidewalks there with the exception of PRC.
Is there
The
any?
sidewalks weren't part of the Port 149.
I believe they only had the crosswalk going across the road,
Okay,
but I can double check that.
Is there any opportunity to move some of that sidewalk money from the really good sidewalks in town to the really bad sidewalks in town?
So, I think we have to follow what the grant was submitted for, and the grant was specifically submitted
we
for
argued
streetscape in
against
that
that.
area.
We argued against that the very day the first grant outline was put together. I don't understand it. You got sidewalks that are in superb shape, and you got sidewalks that are an absolute disaster. And you're gonna spend money?
We could go back to show of hands, please, so we can make sure everyone has a chance to speak. Yes, sir.
Hi, Garrett Calabrese, 10 Octavia Place. I just had a question. Were any of the crosswalks going to be raised? Because I know that can help contribute to traffic calming.
Right now, we do not have any raised crosswalks proposed.
Okay.
One issue with that is you have very flat streets in town, so
Right.
the water does tend to sit on either side of those. You have to add drainage, so it's not something that was included in the initial application.
And I know this is not related to the pedestrian safety, but has the borough looked into adding sidewalks over by Green Grove? Because I know a lot of people walk to the bus early morning, and it's very low visibility over there, and it's basically a accident waiting to happen. Well, not even that.
We've had communication with the county about that as well, because that's a county roadway. There was one portion of sidewalks added, which was part of the contingent agreement for when they added the apartments off of Willow Street. But the other side doesn't have any, and that's the side that the bus station and depot is on. It was referenced earlier that we do have an application in for safe routes to transit. So it is a different project, but we have been putting that request in several times.
Okay, good. Thank you.
We've also, just to add on to that with the county, that's their bridge right there, the culvert.
Yeah, the
So
bridge, yeah.
We've requested the county upgrade that culvert and add sidewalks to
That's
at least
yes.
one side of it, because right now,
It's very narrow.
basically walking in the street to get over that.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
very narrow, and, yep. Thank
I
you.
think in one takeaway tonight though is that, we have a lot of requests into the county. And I do, just on public record, wanna say that they have been, more open, for the last two or 3 years, in a lot of our requests, including the, Complete Street demonstration project that we had over on Maple Place by Cornucopia for the way that's all cattywampus over there to come off the trail and then cross by Cornucopia, then cross Maple to get back on the trail. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. Last year we did the demonstration project to see how that can be improved, and they really worked hard with Trevor to get that approved and the timeline for us to finish out that grant cycle as well. But we definitely, as a united governing body, have taken different approaches of what the municipality was doing in years past, which was not making friends with the county. And so we've definitely changed that strategy, and it's been working. So I do want to commend them, because as I said, for a municipality with 6 county roadways, that's a lot of asks on our part for years and years and years of nothing ever being requested. So the same, I'll throw this out there as another plug for them. We have 6 county roadways, not one of them has been paved in a quarter of a century. So we did get approval to pave Broad Street, but then we had to put that on hold actually because of a memorandum of agreement that had to be signed that we weren't ready to sign yet because of some improvements that were being done. So they are, one thing we've definitely pushed hard for the last 5 years is a Bay Shore awareness, and the commissioners have been open to a lot of initiatives that we're working on. So I do want on the record that they're aware of all these asks, but it was a very long time of the asks not moving forward. So we can't really beat them up too hard. They have 53 municipalities to take care of at the county level. So I'm not sure if you were done with your questions.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Good, thank you.
Okay. That's right. Yes, ma'am.
And First Street, when they put the signs up, they take it down 25 miles an hour, right across, like, from the playground, can they put playground, children, slow down, like that?
Yeah, I can get it to county request, but we can work with them. Get that done.
Mr. Kelsey?
I just want to get back to the wayfinding signage. Is any of that extending outside the borough? The placement of those signs?
No, it would only
Okay.
be within the borough.
Right. So, I think we really should put the bus station on those signs, because I know there's definitely no sidewalks all the way to Hazlitt. And, I certainly understand we're not gonna put signs going down 36, but at least to get people started off, in the same fashion of the train stations. And the bus station is really probably what's most heavily used by people in Keyport. The train stations are not.
Yeah, just to be clear, the wayfinding signs are gonna be on Maple, at
Yeah.
516, so.
Oh, I see, it's not
in
even
the
close.
bus station, just for the train station.
Right, okay, I understand.
I guess
I'm
there's
sorry.
buses that probably go to the train station in addition to the train, I'd imagine, but it's for Maple Place.
No, you're right, the signs don't go over that direction. All right, thanks.
Mrs. Hen?
I just have one more thing I wanted to bring up by First Street by the Beach Park. Before the trees were removed, they acted as almost like a natural barrier. And I know we're talking about the traffic calming to 25 miles an hour, which is great, but again, people do go quickly. Have we considered like adding any kind of like natural boulder or barrier in the event that someone did jump the curb in that area, since the playground is right there? I mean, I know there's a small fence, but in terms of stopping any kind of traffic from, I'm just because the other day I happened to be.
Is that part of your MVP application perhaps?
Maybe, it could be. No, and the other reason I wanted to bring this up as well is, we recently got a dog, so of course Mom walks the dog now. And I was out pretty early in the morning, and I was actually, this is on American Legion Drive, which is kind of what triggered it a little for me, but, car was coming pretty quickly around the curve, jumped up and came back down, but any faster, and that area is very narrow there. So that made me think, is there a way of putting in some type of boulder or something, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a boulder, some ballast or something like that would deter a car that did come over the curb, since there isn't a barrier there. And it's heavily populated, obviously, in the summertime. We see how many people are between Beach Park and the waterfront. There doesn't seem to be, and since the trees did come out a while ago, there were, about 6 of them in front of Beach Park. Again, that acted almost as a natural barrier if, in the event someone did go too quickly, jump the curb, and prevent it from going into the playground. So that's just something to mention. We could even look at what they do for the buildings, so you have the little concrete poles, like to kind of put those all throughout, so that.
They make decorative ones too that
They do.
almost look like chess pieces.
Yeah, yeah, there's all sorts of, yeah.
And then,
Since it is a playground.
yeah.
Two questions.
Mr. Lane?
Yeah, one is, I'll just make a statement, from my friends in the townhouses, they're very excited to have those trees down. I mean, you visit them, the view is fantastic.
They weren't removed for the view. Those are street memorials for residents that died in World War I.
The trees.
They were all been replaced.
The trees were removed as a result of the Sandy flooding. The people in the townhouses appealed for them to be removed before Sandy destroyed them. And they would be very unhappy if you planted trees there that would grow high.
The trees have already been replanted and they were part of a World War I bicentennial ceremony.
I understand the trees were a memorial from years ago, but there was no townhouses across the street generating $5 or $6 million in tax assessment.
The trees were there before the townhouses, so they knew what they were purchasing. So can we move on to the next topic, please, and stick to the topic?
What's your timeline or schedule for seeing some improvements?
So after this meeting, we can just make any revisions to the plans, submit those to the county and the DOT for approval. Once the DOT signs off on the preliminary plans, then we have to go in for final design to the DOT, which is kind of buttoning up the plans, doing the specifications. Then it'll go out to bid. So we're thinking somewhere early 2023, we'll be able to go out to bid. So we're thinking this is going to be 2023 construction project.
My only request with that would be, and we have the other communication with NJDOT about upgrading power utilities on Broadway coming up from the bridge off of from Aberdeen. So can we just make sure that everything is in sync on that before, I don't want to see them come and have to put anything in and that disrupt what we're going to do on Broadway. I'd rather us find out their final deadline, timeline for the utility project so that nothing is then taken up and have to be redone on Broadway. For the part, Broadway, and, because they're coming in with that project, I believe, Broadway on, from West Front, from Aberdeen onto Broadway. Correct?
That's correct. That's tentatively, they're looking at a I believe it's a 2024 upgrade of their utility transmission.
Okay, can we just make sure that we look at that project, whether it's 2024 or not, just look at those plans and see, and make them aware that we have this very important pedestrian safety project, and we would hope that they do not go and disrupt any of the crosswalks that we're about to put in.
Yeah, we'll reach out and see if they have a preliminary poll plan, just at least preliminarily, just so we can make sure that we're not putting anything that's going to be ripped up
Thank
a
you.
year later.
Thank you. Warren?
Is it possible to do the speed limit reductions prior to the physical plan changes?
The speed limit reductions have already been approved by the county for the request that went in, so we're actually just waiting for the signage to come in. Am I correct?
Sorry, go ahead.
Am I correct?
Yes, so typically the county does this annual striping and signage plan that gets done in late spring or early summer. So they're trying to get it done as part of that project. I'm just not sure exactly when it's gonna happen, but it should be
Okay,
sometime.
but they're not connected, like it.
The speed limit's been approved already. Ma'am, you had a question? Did you have your hand up again? I thought you did.
No, I was pointing.
Oh, okay,
Yes,
sorry.
yes.
Okay, sorry. Any, Councilwoman Davidson has joined us as well. Sorry, I didn't introduce you when you came in. Did you have any questions? We did governing body earlier.
No, sorry, no, thank you, excuse me, tardiness, no, thank you, I don't have any questions at this time.
Any other commentary by the engineering firm?
But, thank you.
Trevor?
I think I'm good, Mayor, thank you.
Jay?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Then this I do want to express my gratitude for everyone coming out this evening, and gratitude on behalf of the borough. As I stated earlier, this is technically a decade in the making, which Mr. Palmisano can attest to, because it was he and Maureen Kinkilla from the Environmental Commission that did a database of how many intersections are in the entire municipality of Keyport, and that got us looking at the importance of it. So that was the kickoff, and then the request when I was on council before becoming mayor to submit this grant application. So, but as we said at the beginning of the meeting, we are a very small municipality, but we have a lot of adjoining projects with state roadways and county roadways for such a small municipality. So it's not like we could just go do it ourselves, and we have to work collaboratively with other entities. So, and then we throw in a 2.5-year pandemic on that, and that definitely didn't help things. So I appreciate everyone taking their time and having this positive dialogue this evening. And that will conclude the meeting for tonight.
Mayor, the plans will be here if anyone wants to take a closer look at them or have any questions, so we'll linger around.
Thank you.
Howard, it's your copy, I forgot.